Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Family Show, Season 3, Episode 7, I believe, now in Season 3. With me today, I have Gerry or Gerry Dempsey, I believe it is, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
you go by Demps, and you have a podcast, The Smartest Guys in the Room. I have the link scrolling down there. It's also in the description. You can pull it up there. And your co-host is Otis on there. And you've been friends
Yep.
since junior high. So
Yes.
how then is there a lot of razzing back and forth about since you've known each other so long about like relationships? Do you guys ever get into that? Like, oh, you had a bad relationship with this person, or is there any
We
reminiscent about that?
Most of our conversations are about the idiot things we did in high school. Some of our friends that we knew. The good thing, I guess, is him and I are on the same page a lot. And again, we're not political, but I'll give you a little bit of foreshadowing. Otis tends to lean a little bit to the left, we'll say. And, I consider myself more of a free spirit than anything else, Bob. But,
Yeah,
if you had to put me down on paper, what they used to call a libertarian, which I don't think fits anymore, quite frankly, but I'm
yeah,
probably a lot more liberal. But the way I live my life is fairly conservative, I guess, when
right,
it just comes to me being private.
right. And I'm kind of with you on that. Like I- as I've gotten older, I'm more in that libertarian fashion, but there's a lot of things that I lean left on, and there's some things that I lean right on. But I think I'm trying to more follow what Jesus taught, and so there are some things that Jesus would be left on, and there are some things that Jesus would be right on if you're going to put him on a political spectrum. So
Yep.
so um, I'm kind of with you there, and it's more because I've gotten to know so many people that my perspective and outlook on things have changed. And I don't know if you're the same way, because I'm sure maybe
Yep.
when you were in high school, you had different thoughts about things than what you do now.
Well, as a young man, I have to say, if we're going to label me, I was the rebel without a clue for sure. You know, I was
Right.
born and raised to be Catholic, and while I still, retain a lot of that upbringing, um, I had a lot of reasons to rebel against just authority in general. We'll say
Right.
that.
Right.
How does that
Yeah.
sound?
Yeah. That sounds pretty close to me. It's all I want. The system's all screwed up. Let's get rid of the system instead of when you get older, you go, well, you can't really get rid of the system. You kind of need to, if you want to change it, pick some things that you'd like to change and kind of concentrate on those areas, because you can't change the whole system at once. At least from what I've seen in history, and then just in my life these past years that I've been alive, we've been through so much change. I mean, just since I graduated high school, we had 9/11. Um,
Yep.
it was right after I graduated high school, and then and I remember sitting. We had our high school dance at the it was Safeco Field when I was there, but where the Mariners play up in Seattle.
Hmm.
We had our high school dance there, and I remember sitting on the bleachers, sitting there out there, and just kind of looking at the skyline and going, man, after tonight, and after I graduate, my whole world is going to change. And little did I know how profound of a statement that was going to be,
Yep.
because everybody's world was going to change. And now
Yep.
we're dealing with the COVID stuff on top of it. And so I feel like, and I'm like, if they when they classify generations, I'm the oldest of the millennials, basically within a year or
Right.
two or whatever. And so when a lot of people they give millennials a hard time, it's like, man, the amount of stuff that especially the older millennials have had to deal with, like with job market and stuff like that. When I was going into the job market, I was dealing with uh, recession stuff already, because I was working since I was 16, and it was hard to
Yep.
get jobs back then. And so, and I'm sure you dealt with you're a little bit older than me, I think, and you probably dealt with like the tech bubble stuff, because you are the smartest guys in the room applies to tech stuff, doesn't it, that you guys work with?
Well, I'll tell you a personal note because I wanted to come back to what you said earlier was, I remember 9/11 and I was living in California at the time. And I was living in Northern California and where I worked, we had a big all hands meeting planned. I was up at like 5 in the morning, West Coast time, because I had to drive into San Francisco to a very tall building for this day of meetings that was going to include about a couple, maybe 300 people. Okay. And I'm showering and whatnot, and I put on the TV while I'm getting ready. And, my mom is calling me from the East Coast, kind of freaking out a little bit. And you'll never, I remember thinking this will change, maybe not right at the moment, but I knew the world was going to change. And, and I'll do you one better because I do know I mentor a lot of millennials or have in the past. As a Gen Xer, the beautiful thing was we tended to have been ignored, which again, to me was a good thing because it left me to my own designs, which I kind of enjoyed that independent, figure it out kind of mentality. I don't remember getting picked on by, the generation before us because they were stoners and hippies from the 60s that, they got their own stuff to deal with, so to speak.
Right.
But I mean, plus we didn't have all that internet crap that kids have to deal with today either.
And I was lucky. I want to say I was lucky in that wasn't really big when I was, when I was younger. I got to enjoy kind of the childhood that the Gen X people did, where I was out till the dark and then coming home, and didn't have cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And so I am not jealous of kids growing up today with all that stuff. I kind of wish kids had the ability to not have technology, maybe and they can't because they need to know it for jobs and stuff now, obviously, but almost have those years of freedom.
It's funny because they being the older generations, I remember all the stories that TV was going to ruin your eyes. TV was going to make us all robots. Watching cartoons, watching Foghorn Leghorn and Bugs Bunny was going to turn you into a psychopath. And I mean, I have to say, I did learn how to be a smartass from cartoons like that, and then and The Simpsons, right? So, you take the blessing, you take the curse. Screen time, I think the older people tend to suffer the worst from it. I mean, I have a 12-year-old son, Bob, that I bought him a smartphone. He's got an iPhone, and he texts his buddies, but most of what he does, he's pretty industrious. He plays chess on the internet with his friends, and he, like if I put a picture of my kids on Instagram, like he'll get a little weird about it. Like, Dad, I don't want my picture on Instagram. And again, so he's the next generation, right? He's not a millennial.
That's good, though. That's good then.
And I think you'll see a pendulum of because a lot of people are just disinterested in Twitter and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
They kicked Trump off of it. Now, what do you go to Twitter for now?
Right.
I mean, what's the latest outrage?
No controversy there. They're just kicking each other off now. Now that Trump's off there, they're kicking each other off.
They got to find other people. Yeah. Well, you just got to the hunting of witches never seems to go out of style, I guess. Just
different witches.
The cloak that they wear might be different. I don't know.
Right.
But
anyway. And that may be when you're talking about, older people on screen time, maybe that'll be the next thing, at least for me, when I took some time away from doing the screen about a month or whatever. And I didn't have a phone with me, didn't have all that stuff. It allowed me to have a lot different thought process.
Oh yeah.
So now when I come back and use the screen, I want to use it for good purposes and try to leave good comments to people and like good things, because from what I've learned of any of the algorithm stuff, whatever you click that like button to and whatever you spend your time watching is going to give you more of that. So if you spend your time liking and watching positive things, then you'll get more of it. And so you
Yep.
can actually use it to help you instead of hurt you.
Oh, there's a million. Yeah, I own a home, and it was new when I bought it, but we've been here 15 years. So guess what? Things start to break. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to YouTube and like, how do I replace? I just had to replace the stuff that's in the back of the toilet, that little plunger and all that crap.
Yeah.
So I just pulled up a YouTube video. I watched it a couple times and I did it. And I probably saved myself a few $100 not calling a plumber, which I would have done had I not had that YouTube video. So I mean, all the good stuff is there, but it is up to us as individuals to be our own best friends, right? And don't go watch the bad stuff. There is so many dark and dirty corners on the internet. And I'll do you one better. I remember when I got my first PC. So I've been selling computer electronics in some way, shape, or form since 1990, and it's come a long way. So I will tell you that. But I remember downloading my first. Let's just say my first questionable piece of download, and over a phone line plugged into the back of the computer, right? Which again probably dates me.
Oh yeah. I think I can do the modem sounds almost by heart.
There you go. That's what I was going to. And when it takes you 10 minutes to get a picture of a woman and her boobs, it's kind of you're kind of like, okay, that's it. That's enough. I've had enough of that. So I guess I got dissuaded early on. I will. I should probably ask you though, how adults are we allowed to go on your show? Are we for children? Are we? I don't know if we clarified that.
Well, I try to keep it pretty clean, but that's probably a good enough point right there where we're talking about. But yeah, but it was line by line of that kind of stuff, and now it's so easy to get addicted to that kind of stuff because it's there.
Well,
it's there in your pocket anytime you want to pull it up, and so I try to stay away from it myself because it's just
I worry about the young kids.
Yeah,
the young guys, because it can really skew the way you see the world.
Yeah, the way you see the opposite sex or the same sex, whichever
really,
you're into.
It does not give you a good, you get leadership in anywhere you could look, right? From watching people behave at the supermarket to coaching to all places in life, right? Your preacher at your local church to whomever. Just watching a dad and his kids at a restaurant, if you watch them for a few minutes, you can tell what kind of a dad that is. And so, I mean, pick your heroes, because if you're watching that stuff on internet, those are people you should feel bad for. I usually do. If I read an article about someone in the industry or what have you, even like celebrities that have to do nudes shoots in movies, like I actually just feel bad for them because I know they're being coerced and they're being paid to flash their nude bodies, and I can't be all that comfortable.
I started to think the same way with you on that, where it's like it's hard to view that kind of stuff because because one, I'm trying to stay away from it, but the other one, like you're talking about, like how much money were they paid to do that? How much, and then how good do you feel about watching that kind of material that you're feeding into it? Because if nobody viewed that material or nobody went after that material, there wouldn't be a market for it. Then you wouldn't have like you're talking about the coercion or the this if somebody's doing it willingly, that's a whole different subject. But when you're looking at actors and actresses and they want to act for a living, and here's a big role for you, but you have to do this. Yep. Is it really? Are you really willfully doing it, or are you doing it because you want that role because that's going to help your career in the long run?
Well, so to some degree, I mean, I hate to say it, but so many of us are coin operated. You know, I mean, I felt like that in like I said, I've been in sales my entire life. I mean, I started selling newspapers when I was 10 years old. I had a paper route, and I've always had a job that was in some form a sales capacity.
Right.
So I mean, it's up to the individual to safeguard and get what they want out of life, I guess. But it is, some of that stuff
Yeah.
can really take you
And
to a bad place.
yeah, and Unlimited Potential Network Academy, Dave, who I had on just yesterday, he says TikTok and Instagrams is where the Gen Zers are going, and the problem social media addiction. And I was thinking that that may be, an area where that may be like the next rehab for people, just to have a place where they can get away and not be on social media, and just take a break from their screens and maybe work on themselves for a little while. Because if you're that deep into it, and I've been there myself, so I'm talking from somebody that would sit there and scroll and scroll and scroll, that it can affect your, like what we're talking about with pornography and stuff like that. It can affect your outlook on life in general. And so if all you see is people having great lives, and that's all you ever see of their lives, then you go, well, what's wrong with me? Why do I not always have great things going on?
Yeah.
And so I think it's not. I think people like your son are smart enough, and they're growing up with it, and so they know, hey, look at the people that are older than me. Like, what are they doing? They're out taking pictures of themselves all these places. I want to just
He
be a kid.
yeah, he
And
can't
so I
stand
think
any
it's
of
the
that.
people in between, like the millennials and stuff like that, where we're so wrapped up in it because it came along and it was new to us, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a new drug for your brain because it releases the same chemicals in your brain, and it's the same, like you're talking about the cells and stuff like that. Anybody that does cells is going to look into that and go, how can we increase cells by using that type of stuff to stimulate your brain? And so I'm happy and to hear that younger people are I don't want to say smart enough, because I think everybody's smarter when you're younger, because your brain's still getting developed to where you can kind of take things in and learn. But
Yep.
but it's good to hear that they're at least waking up to the fact of, I shouldn't
I
live my
think
whole life on a phone.
well, and one of the things, I'm no professor of, we joke around with our smartest guy in the room. And if you look at the logo, the joke is, the dog is sitting on the toilet in an outhouse by himself. That's
Right,
like the
right.
only place maybe most of us get to be the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
And, you, there's a couple of things, but one, I teach my kids how to solve problems and think. I don't tell them what to do. And when I catch myself doing it, because it's easy to fall into that, here, just do it this way. I'll go and work on projects with my son. We'll build things and just do different things. But teaching them to think for themselves and respecting themselves. So I put both of my kids, I have a 7-year-old daughter too. I put them both into martial arts at a very early age, at 3 years old. And my son is a second-degree black belt in karate, and my daughter, who's 7, will have her black belt by the time she's 9. But they live and breathe it, and they get
Right.
reinforced there. They get reinforced in their other sports. So it's, to me, because I can control like the exposure they have to all these good ways of, to you just brought it up, to shaping their brains and how to receive that dopamine hit from, you just kicked ass in karate. You just
Right.
did this. My son has won chess tournaments. So
Oh, nice,
those are
nice.
the
Yeah.
things, his brain is now wired to seek that dopamine hit from these types of activities, which
Hmm.
will safeguard him. Hopefully, nothing's fail proof, right?
Right.
But safeguard him from saying, "Oh, I just want to sit around and play video games and look at porn all day," because he has better things to do.
Right.
And that's the smart. Those are the smart things we can teach our kids as we all kind of learn together, like how to deal with this amazing tool that is the internet. Because I mean,
Right.
it is the
And,
tool of
and
the millennium.
right.
Go ahead.
And Tracy Oceanfire 777. She said there's a lot of toxic videos in online communities, and it's great to find positive ones and those with creative and helpful ideas. And that's exactly the point, is training yourself and your brain to seek those out. And I think and that's where I applaud Gen X, because like my brother, he worked my older brother worked for Prodigy Classic way back in the day. So
Yep.
when we had internet, it was basically still new consumer wise, but it made me respect the internet at a younger age. But then also, because I was using it so early, I was savvy enough that it's real easy to get into those toxic communities and all that kind of stuff. And so now I'm trying to use it and doing this podcast and doing my YouTube channel and trying to do it for good purposes, and having people come on. And when you guys get together and talk, and we kind of talked a little bit before, but about the past, it's kind of at least for me, when I talk about the past with people, you get that movie playing in your mind of those days back then. So what are some of your fondest memories of being in school with Otis?
I mean, oh gosh. Well, I actually wrote my buddy Otis is a writer. Okay. He's written a few books, and he was worked for a newspaper as a reporter for his whole entire career. So we were children of the original Saturday Night Live, Animal House, those types of movies, right? The Bill Murray fan. So I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, and you want to talk about fear of missing out before that was like a thing. Like, you wouldn't miss school because there'd be A, a food fight, B, a regular fight, clowning around, someone getting hit by a teacher. There was just always some kind of madness. And we were not bad kids, but I would definitely say we were mischievous. And I mean, like, we would, after school, sometimes we'd go and drink beer. Our high school was on Lake Erie up in upstate New York. Like, we just did all kinds of stupid, crazy things. I got on stage one time at we had this all-day pep rally, okay? We had a band. And my friends put me on stage, and I sang the Bruce Springsteen song, Dancing in the Dark, with the band. And I mean, and then they carried me off the stage. It was just like one day in our life. Like, every day was just a madhouse. And we just had so much fun. Busted, like, to your point, you said it earlier, busting each other's chops, having fun, horsing around. I remember one time we had this priest who I worked for. I worked at my high school to help pay my tuition. We called him Bio Bill. He was like this hulking biology teacher, and he was a Franciscan friar. Okay. Anyway, we were horsing around the lockers one day, me and a couple of my buddies. He just walks up out of nowhere, grabbed one of my friends who was a star football player, smacked him upside the head, had handprint across his cheek. And I mean, it's just like just crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, but he probably knocked it off after that though too. Like, hey,
he almost cried, and he was one of the toughest kids I've ever seen. No, this guy, this brother Bill, he's passed now, so I can say his name. We used to call him Bio Bill, and he hated that too. He beat the crap out of my brother, and my brother was a college football player, 6'2", 240, and he can still kick the crap out of a lot of guys. Right. He beat him up, and then he wanted to take him outside. He said to my brother, he was like, "Hey, you want to go out back and finish this?" And my brother was like, big man on campus kind of guy. He was like, "No, thank you. I'm going to say no." But this guy, like, he loved me because I worked for him, and we had a good relationship. But just the camaraderie, like you said earlier about the community. I don't know. I loved going to high school every day. And I mean, I got pretty good grades and stuff, but it was just a blast. And me and this guy Otis stayed friends through college. I went to California with him the first time, and we were just stupid, crazy guy fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
drinking too, I have to say.
Yeah. I've done a lot of that too. I don't do it anymore, but yeah, a lot of drinking in my past, a lot of going to bars and singing karaoke. And I was a karaoke host for a little bit. So that was always entertaining. Is there, when you guys decided to start the podcast, was there a moment where you guys were talking and you both decided, well, hey, why don't we just record these conversations we have and put them out?
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way. I have a couple of friends that we've tried to, my whole corporate life, I was the kind of guy that we would sit in these meetings with kind of empty suit business people. And I'm the kind of guy that I have like 10 dialogues going on in my head. And typically what I'm looking for is the biggest joke I can think up in my brain. And I mean, I had another friend who I'm going to maybe pull into this at some point. But whenever I would talk to this guy, Otis, my pal Matt, we would bring up these old stories and end up laughing our butts off. And that's where the idea or the impetus was like, listen, man, people, and everywhere I would go, no offense to anyone in the world, like people are like, God, you're really funny. You're really funny. You should, I've heard people say that to me a million times. So, I'm 53 years old and I'm like, well, I can do this any younger. And I actually retired from the corporate life a year and a half ago because I have young kids and my wife, both her and I were working our asses off. And, we paid off the mortgage on our house. And I said, you know what? I'm going to retire. I'll play the stock market because then we can get rid of like this woman who used to take care of our kids. And I said, I don't want someone else raising my children. Like I want to raise, you know what I mean? So,
I mean, that's one of the biggest things I think you can do in your life. I don't have any kids, but if I had kids, I'd want to spend as much time with them as I could to
it's a lifestyle, buddy. I'm going to tell you, don't go into it half-heartedly because you won't like it. It is a lifestyle and it becomes your life. I used to work with a lot of married guys when I was younger and I lived in California, and they were always so jealous of me because I had no commitments. I had no debt. I made good money. I traveled, did whatever the hell I wanted, and all my buddies were like, oh, I got to go home. And they would lament the fact that they were chained to this life of, sure, they did well financially, but then it's getting burned 2 minutes later by big mortgage, expensive cars, their lifestyle, right? I mean, I send my kids to private school. That's probably the thing I spend the most money on right now. But it's worth it to me because they get, at this point in their life, being sheltered when they're, from kindergarten to 6th, 7th, 8th grade, right? My son goes to high school. He's going to go to public high school. And by then, he will have enough of an identity, I think, that he can meet those.
Self-esteem and confidence.
He can take care of himself. Yes.
Right.
But I mean, there's a kid down the street that we love. He's a good friend of my son's and we're family friends. Getting picked on. Like he joined the martial arts class with us to deal with the bullies in his school. And he's a super sweet kid. And I mean, me and his dad were going to go hunt down the dads of these other kids. And but you can't do that.
No. My
dad,
when I got in fights in school, he went and had a talk with the principal and said, if he comes home beat up one more time, I'm going to make you look like him. And after that, I didn't have much trouble in school anymore.
Yeah, those were the days you could do that. Hey, I remember my sister. I was a freshman in college, and my sister was a freshman in high school. She came home one day and said this, senior in high school spit on her on the bus, and I knew the kid. So her and I drove to his house. I rang his doorbell. He came out, and I took care of business. But the funny thing is,
well, you picked on your sister. That's kind of what.
Well, and he was my size. There was no, but here's what happened. The cops came to my house. I had to go to court, right? I had to pay a fine. And then the best part of the story is, one, I didn't care. But two, they sent me to the local Catholic parish to do my sentence. Mm-hmm. And the priest who knew me, obviously, because that's where we went to school and church, was like, tell me the story, Demps. So I told him what happened, and he signed this paper. He's like, you've served your time. Now get out of here. Because he was the kind of guy that was like, yeah, you did it right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you did it for the right reason. You didn't do it because, and that's kind of
I was protecting my sister, man. The kid was a punk.
Yeah. The couple times that I've gotten in trouble was because people were picking on my friends, and I said, no, I'm not going to put up with that. And so, yeah, it's something that I never liked to do. I never liked to get in fights, but when it came to happen to be in a fight in order to protect people that I care about or protect myself, then that's when I would.
Yeah.
And have you had any fights with any other podcasts since you guys have started? Has there been anybody that's been like
no?
called you guys out?
No, we just had a lot of fun. We don't have too many. We're still south of 1,000 listens, but we just got started right around December, and we haven't done any advertising yet. So I'm enjoying it, and we get a lot of good feedback from our listeners because we stay away from being too political, right? Like I said, I'm not going to talk about Trump or Biden or any. There's enough of that garbage on TV now. There's more than enough.
There's too much.
And we want our place to be a haven from that. And, if you want to think about it from a recipe, we like to crack jokes. We like to make fun of ourselves because you shouldn't make fun of anyone on this planet if you can't make fun of yourself.
Yeah.
We try to talk about things we've learned, things we love, and just keep it interesting and light. So, controversial, we'll run from that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's for smarter people. We're not the smartest guy in the room to talk about that kind of stuff.
Right. And Tracy Ocean brings up a point, and I kind of want to ask you a question off of it. That her brother listened to SNL and would tape the audio on a cassette player. And I remember my friend coming to school, and it was the first comedian that I laughed at, which was Dennis Leary on the No Cure for Cancer. He had taped that, and every lunch hour we'd listen to like a little snippet of it, and I laugh about it and all that kind of stuff. Who since you like making jokes, I'm sure you like stand-up comics.
Oh yeah.
Who was your first one that you really laughed at?
So this is a true, honest to God story. When I was a little nerdy paper boy, I had got myself a Sony Walkman, right? Pretty expensive stuff for a kid back then. And we had a big family, Irish Catholic, I had 11 brothers and sisters. And anyway, I bought Rodney Dangerfield's Rappin' Rodney was like my first comedian tape that I bought, right? I think Eddie Murphy was starting because this is mid 80s.
Yeah.
But Rodney, after I saw him in Caddyshack, had to be the first time, or maybe you saw him on The Late Show. But I'm saying I used to go around as like freshman in high school, maybe telling Rodney jokes. I saw a guy running down the street.
With the tie.
And I used to try to tell my dad Rodney jokes, and my dad would look at me. He's like, and he'd look at my mom and he'd like, honey, we raised an idiot. Look at that kid. I'm like, hey, what are you talking about?
I can't get no respect in this house.
And I would just walk around cracking Rodney jokes. And what's funny, even as an old man, like, I have a drinking buddy of mine that we hang out once in a while. And we worked together for many years, and we used to have to do like all these events where I'd speak at, but it's typically you have to be professional. But I was definitely known for pushing the limits with that kind of stuff. But we would tell when after all the presentation, all the meetings were over, there's always plenty of drinking, and we would tell these younger kids Rodney jokes, but they wouldn't know who Rodney was. So they would think they were our jokes. And I picked that up on him like, oh, they think we're making this shit up. And But it was like pure gold because it's like, wow, they really think I'm that funny now.
Right. Now it all works in the reverse. Now you get to say all those jokes and nobody knows, and so now you get to be the funny guy in the room.
That's exactly. So, but yeah, Rodney was my favorite. But I love comedy. George Carlin was huge. All the SNL people. Richard Pryor was one of my favorites.
Oh, him on that the Sunset Strip one, the live on the Sunset Strip one, that makes me laugh. I mean, Eddie Murphy Raw, that one was hilarious too.
I saw the Dice Man back in the day. Like, he came to our local stadium, and I remember seeing him and just thinking, God, that guy. I mean, he was so dirty back then too. Yeah. But I mean, our parents, fortunately or not, there was no internet, so they didn't know any of the stuff we did. I mean. I got arrested one time and spent the night in jail. My mom still doesn't know about it when I was like 18. So
I remember my stepmom told me, she said, you're welcome to call us if you're ever in jail. We're not going to get you out. We'll come and visit you, but we're not going to get you out. And so it kind of taught me a lesson like, hey, if you get in trouble, you're the one that's going to pay for the trouble, not us. And so it made me be more responsible as a young adult, to be like, okay, well, they love me, they'll come in and visit me, but they're not going to try to get me out of trouble that I got myself in.
And that's good. My dad said something similar. He just said, if you don't get caught, did you actually do it? But the second part of that lesson is, you're dumb, you're probably going to get caught, so maybe you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Don't pull your Rodney Dangerfield stuff on the cop when he comes and talks to you, basically.
Yeah, he had that. A lot of that's what I worry about is, and this is where my good friend Matt, or Otis, we'll call him. His dad and my dad I don't think they ever met or knew each other, but they were cut from that same cloth, and they had the same kind of like barstool wisdom. That sometimes I think I'm worried that kids today don't get that kind of wisdom, of just that old man common sense stuff that is timeless, quite frankly. Right. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. And the Tracy says we quote movie lines in the firehouse. Monty Python's the Holy Grail, and the new guys wouldn't know why we're saying them, so we have to.
That's the same. Yes. Like, what are you guys talking about? Are you talking about an African swallow?
Yeah.
What is your favorite color? I know, and you'll start doing the British accent, and they don't. I still do that stuff.
Yeah. What was the night when he only had one leg left because they chopped off everything else?
Yeah.
He's like,
what's he gonna do? Bleed on you? It's just a flesh wound. Yeah, this is it's kind of on topic, but a little off topic. So I used to work out with this trainer and a bunch of like gym rats, and the trainer was always trying to get you to do more stuff and spend more money. So I used them for just some motivation for about a month. And then he was training this other guy who's a buddy of mine. And I'm like, oh, I'm like busting his chops at the gym one day. And he's like, Gerry, you should get back in with the trainer. You really need a trainer. And then I pulled the Mr. T line of, I train alone. I'm going to win the title alone. And the trainer's this young kid. He's like, I don't get it. And the other dude's laughing. He's like, dude, you sound just like Mr. T. The generational gap is sad.
After that, you should have done the World of Warcraft commercial, and then you might have got it. I'm a night elf mohawk.
I mean, come on, and I'll get in arguments with people. This is how silly I am sometimes. Like, if you're ever with a group, especially couples, and they start saying like, "Oh, what's the best movie ever?" and they're like Beaches or Nicholas Sparks something. And I'll be like Jaws or Rocky. It's one of those two, and then I'll go make it further annoying. I'll be like, no, Rocky 3, because the untold story of Clubber Lang needs to be told.
Right.
Right. And then people just look at like you're an idiot.
Right. Well, the actual there was an actual guy, Rocky, too, that was based on that he would go and fight all the champion guys. I don't know if you've seen the documentary on that guy.
Oh yeah, the Bayonne leader.
Yeah.
I lived in Hoboken for a while, and which is, if you've ever been, you're in Seattle. Is that where you are?
I used to drive truck everywhere, and I never got into in New York City. The closest I got was I made a delivery to Newark, and I ended up driving down the middle of New York, New Jersey with a semi truck. And even a cop that's a New Jersey cop said, I wouldn't do that, and I'm a cop. So
yeah,
I was like, well, I did something that's out there, but yeah.
But that guy you're talking about, I can't think of his name. I think he was from Bayonne, which they're all getting gentrified now, but from Hoboken to Weehawken to Jersey City to Bayonne, there's some pretty rough places back in the 80s, 90s. I had a friend who went to Stevens Institute, which is in Hoboken. It's right on the Hudson River. And he said when he'd go there, he was a commuter. He'd go to class in Hoboken. There'd be women of the night working in the middle of the day down the main street in Hoboken.
Yeah.
So it's come a long way. So I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, Tracy says one guy had never seen a John Wayne movie. Wow. And he didn't know
That's
True Grit was a remake. Who's never seen a John Wayne movie? That's like one that you got to see. You got to see a John Wayne movie just because it's John Wayne in there. I forget the one where he gets in a big fight. Oh shoot. And he says, I won't punch you. I won't punch you. Oh, the hell, I won't punch you. And knocks the guy on the head.
I like the Quiet Man, the one where he goes to Ireland and all that. That's a pretty good movie. I don't know if it's one of his better ones, but I was more of a Clint Eastwood student, I guess. You know, the Dirty Harry movies, the Cowboy, the Man with No Name stuff, Outlaw Josie Wales.
No Country for Old Men was a good movie too. I think he was in it.
I don't know if he's in it, but that's a good movie. I've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. But, McClintock. That's what it was. McClintock. That was the one.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to put lists together for my son of like books to read. Like I had him read The Outsiders when we saw the movie. Just things that I liked when I was a kid. We tried to read some Mark Twain, but I gotta be honest with you, him and I were reading Tom Sawyer together, and about halfway through, I gave up. I'm like, this book's kind of boring. And my son was like, yeah, it kind of is, Dad. Let's move on to something else. But he loves Rodney. We've seen like, I try to get him to watch a lot of the older shows just so gets a sense of like that Americana and the comedy that is part of a fabric of our society, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Get all that the culture in that. And that, I think that makes you a great father, that you want to do that. And one of the things that I'll tell you as somebody that my dad's not around anymore is when he's old enough, if you get the chance, start telling him all your stories, because that's one thing that I wish, now being the age that I am. My dad died when I was 20. So there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom that I don't have, that I wish, hey, Dad, when you were in your 30s, how did you deal with this kind of feelings and this kind of pressure? And so whenever you get the chance, definitely tell him all the advice you can, because even if he doesn't appreciate it now, when he gets older, he'll appreciate the fact that you told him a lot of things.
Oh, that's very true. I lost my dad when I was probably 29, but I had I don't lament it in as much as I value the time I did have with him. And I agree with you, but my dad didn't talk about his childhood, didn't tell stories about, he didn't do that. He would just sit there, and he was the quiet man. Like I think we just talked about.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. And when I'd like to talk to you again. We're already at 40 minutes, so I don't want to go much longer. How podcasts are. You get
it's great.
people to
Great
listen.
chatting
So
with you, buddy. Yeah,
yeah,
I
no,
loved it.
I'd like to have you both on sometime. That'd be cool to have you both of you guys on, and we can chat about whatever. Because as you can see,
Otis
we
is a
talk about
good
whatever.
man.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
entertaining as heck. Yeah, I'd
yeah.
love to do it. All right,
And
Bob. Hey,
I
we could
tell everybody
go ahead.
I tell everybody stop waiting for life to happen and make it happen. And you've made it happen. You're making your podcast happen. Check out smartestguysintheroom.com, Smartest Guys in the Room podcast. Go check them out. Give them a listen. I listened to the I think it's the newest one you had where you're talking about CrossFit and I think it was your uncle or something dying on the toilet, or somebody's uncle dying on the toilet there. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting listen if you guys want to take a listen to that one. I thought it was pretty funny. And
Excellent.
I'm gonna
Thank
play
you.
the credits and get out of here. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience about your show and to check out?
Yeah, we're on YouTube, I've started putting our episodes on there. Just if you Google Otis and Demps,
Otis and
DEMPS,
Dempsey. Okay.
you'll find it quicker on YouTube. But like I said, we'd love to make people laugh. We'd like to give a little wisdom, but mostly we're just smart asses that know we're not very smart.
Right. All right, guys.
All right, buddy.
I'm gonna play the credits and get out of here. And if you want to stick around, I'll talk to you in just a minute.
Thanks, Bob. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you.